You'll ever wondered what life is like for Buzz and Fuller from Home Alone? Well, this movie got all of that. Maxwell Kane has always been an outcast, too big-backed, too dumb, and too used to the way people avoid him. At school, kids steer clear. On the streets, adults treat him like trouble. But the ones to really watch out for are the Doghouse Boys, led by Blade, a bully with a mean streak and a face only a mother can love. One morning, Blade and his gang, including a nerd-ass Asian, corner Maxwell, mocking him for repeating 7th grade and for having a father in prison for murder. Blade even offers him a spot in their gang, saying someone his size could be useful. But when he compares Maxwell to his father, Maxwell storms off. That night, Graham mentions new neighbors, Gwen and her son, Kevin, who has Morquio syndrome. His bone development sucks and makes him shorter. Curious, Maxwell steps outside and spots Kevin building a robot bird. The kid is completely focused, and his hands are precise despite his disability. When he finally launches the bird, it soars until it gets stuck in a tree. Maxwell watches, but when Kevin catches him and flashes a light in his direction, he bolts. The next day during basketball practice, Blade rolls a ball at Kevin, causing a strike. Somehow Maxwell gets blamed and lands in detention, assigned to assist Kevin. Kevin refuses his help, struggling to recover on his own. On weekends, Maxwell helps Grimm with repairs before heading to his learning disability reading class, where he's horrified to find Kevin as his tutor. Kevin hands him a King Arthur book and tells him to read it, but Maxwell a dummy, so Kevin reads it aloud to him instead. Before Kevin leaves, Maxwell finally says it was Blade who attacked him. Kevin just stares, wondering why he'd take the blame for something he didn't do. One day, Kevin offers him $5 to take him to see fireworks, since his mom agoraphobic. Maxwell agrees, and on Saturday they head to the park. Here, the Doghouse Boys spot them, but they escape into a crowd to watch the fireworks display. Kevin wonders why the big-bodied Maxwell don't use his muscles to scare the twinks. When the fireworks begin, Maxwell instinctively lifts Kevin onto his shoulders so he can see. The moment excites Kevin, but Blade and his gang soon find them after the display ends. Following Kevin's directions, they flee to a stream but are surrounded by Blade's goons. Maxwell wades in carrying Kevin, but Blade follows behind them. When Maxwell gets stuck, panic sets in, and even Blade struggles too and gives up. After leaving the stream, the cops arrive and arrest him and his goons, saving Kevin and Maxwell. That evening, Gwen compliments Graham and Grimm for having a brave grandson. She adds that he saved Kevin's life, but Maxwell only gets a cup of coffee. Then Grimm says it's good Maxwell helped a cripple boy, knowing full well that Maxwell is crippled mentally himself. From that day, Maxwell's bond with Kevin tightened, as he often helped to carry him on his shoulders. They took a stroll in the city and caught the attention of many adults. Upon entering a restaurant, they see a man assaulting his girlfriend. Kevin compels Maxwell to intervene in the matter, and he agrees. Why that man look like her dad, though? And they look inbred. When Maxwell stands up to the guy, the man leaves the restaurant shocked that a mere kid stood up to him. As a reward, the manager gives his items for free. At Kevin's house, the big back guy loves the food, saying his granny cooks like a white woman, and Kevin's mom uses slap ya mama seasoning. The next morning, while Kevin joins his mom on a ride, he notices when Blade and his gang steal a purse and hide it in the sewers. At night, he forces Maxwell to go on a quest with him so they can retrieve the stolen purse. Kevin uses his big brain and a bit of physics to open the manhole cover with minimal effort. Maxwell enters the sewers and retrieves the stolen purse. You gotta have me fucked up crawling into shit-infested sewers. However, on the other side, they get surrounded by Blade and the Doghouse Boys. Blade asks Kevin to give up the purse, but he refuses. Even when Blade and his guys approach with weapons, he refuses and climbs onto a platform, leaving Maxwell to face them alone. Why these white kids acting hella hard, though? This ain't the hood. Surprisingly, Maxwell lifts the heavy manhole cover and uses it to defend himself from Blade and the others. Blade soon realizes that Maxwell means business, so he joins his chicken shit guys running away. The following day, Maxwell joins Kevin on another quest to return the stolen purse. They reach an apartment and return the purse to a woman named Loretta. She immediately pulls both kids into her house and recognizes Maxwell. Her boyfriend Iggy asks to know Maxwell's name and is shocked to hear his last name, Kane. Turns out he knows Maxwell's father, and they've been in prison before. Loretta begins a conversation with Maxwell where she talks about his father's case. She calls Maxwell the mute boy, a name he was called in the papers when he was supposed to testify for his father. Then Maxwell angrily leaves the house with Kevin. Initially, Kevin tries to talk to Maxwell, but Maxwell declines. He insists and tells Maxwell he is not like his father, Kenny. He manages to talk some sense into Maxwell, insisting that knights are rewarded for their deeds. Later that afternoon, he joins Maxwell at a museum featuring the Knights of Camelot. At some point, Kevin picks up a sword and uses it to ordain himself and Maxwell as a knight pair called Freak the Mighty. From that day, Kevin never asked Maxwell anything about his father, and their bond grew. All right, nobody better die in this movie, otherwise I'm gonna throw hands. At school, Maxwell carries Kevin everywhere, ignoring the usual insults. They even try joining the basketball team as a duo, but the coach refuses. Gwen is called to the principal's office, where she pleads for Kevin's chance to play, explaining that Maxwell has given him something priceless: friendship and joy. Touched, the principal bends the rules. The boys rush to practice, and while the coach is stunned to see them together, their performance leaves the crowd speechless. Weeks later, Graham finds letters from Maxwell's father and quietly discards them. Meanwhile, the principal summons Maxwell to her office with shocking news. His father has been granted parole. Overwhelmed, Maxwell has a panic attack. When Grimm finds out, he immediately arms himself with his shotgun, preparing for the worst. Graham disapproves, arguing that Kenny is forbidden from coming near their home, or Maxwell. When Grimm refuses to back down, she reminds him that they already lost their daughter Annie. Maxwell is all they have left. That night, Maxwell locks himself in his room crying. One day during lunch, Maxwell warns Kevin to slow down his eating, but Kevin just grins and dresses up in drag with his food. The laughter is cut short when he suddenly chokes. Maxwell notices and rushes over, calling for help. At the hospital, Kevin's condition stabilizes. While a nurse calls Gwen to see the doctor, Maxwell stays by his side. When Kevin finally regains consciousness, he weakly grins and cracks another joke, making Maxwell laugh despite everything. On the other hand, Gwen finally meets with the doctor, who struggles to tell her the truth about her son's condition. When he finally summons the courage, he mentions that Kevin's condition has worsened and he only has a year to live. The info breaks Gwen's heart so much that she boxes a vending machine. Finally, Maxwell intervenes and assures her that everything will be fine. After 2 weeks, Kevin was discharged from the hospital and Maxwell helped Gwen with the packing. Since Kevin has not fully recovered yet, his schooling took a brief pause. He also reduced his quests with Maxwell following the doctor's orders, but once in a while, they sneak out to check some places out. One day, Kevin leads the way to a research facility and makes him swear an oath of secrecy. He tells Maxwell that the facility is an experimental biogenetic intervention unit, and in the future, he will enter their lab and be reborn as an improved human. He adds that his medical data has been collected, but Maxwell feels that the procedure would be too dangerous. Later, Maxwell takes a few shots at the basketball court, but stops when he remembers a group of kids mocking him. At home, Maxwell breaks down after seeing his father's picture. When Graham asks what's wrong, he mutters that he's just like him. He sees his father in the mirror and hears his voice in his. It haunts him. After listening, Graham talks to him and makes him feel better. A few days later, Maxwell lies asleep in bed, but dreams about a memory of his father. He wakes up after some time and is terrified of his dream. His mind conjures an image of his father standing in the room, watching him. But when he looks again, the figure vanishes. To him, it's not real. He then lets his guard down and continues his sleep, only for his father to restrain him and warn him against making any sounds. Kenny steals a car and abducts Maxwell from the house. Paralyzed with fear, Maxwell stays silent, powerless against his father. Meanwhile, Kevin notices a group of cops outside Grimm's house and senses trouble. The officers inform Graham that Kenny failed to check in with his parole officer. Alarmed, Grimm rushes to the basement, only to discover Maxwell is gone. Determined to help, Kevin sneaks into Maxwell's room to investigate. He finds Kenny's old picture and a fresh footprint at the entrance, confirming his suspicions. Meanwhile, Kenny takes Maxwell to Iggy's place for the night. Iggy greets them and leads them to an empty apartment where they can lay low. Surprisingly, Kevin drives his mom's van, heading to Iggy's house, with the hopes of finding Maxwell. Maxwell gets tied up by his father, so he does not try to escape Iggy's apartment. Kenny claims he wants to talk. After restraining Maxwell, he tells him that he didn't kill Annie, his wife. He claims he never harmed her, adding that he loved her with all his heart. Elsewhere, Kevin crashes the van while trying to make a turn. Despite that, he improvises with the van's lights and uses a sled on the snow heading towards his target. But he crashes and falls after losing control of his movements. Back at Iggy's place, Loretta arrives bearing pizza for Maxwell and Kenny. Once allowed in, she plays along and sneakily hands Maxwell a plier so he can free himself. However, Kenny insists that she leave the room but stops when she mentions that Maxwell stopped by with a friend in the past to return her wallet. Kenny gets concerned as he questions Maxwell about the kid he came to the house with. Around dawn, Kevin reaches the apartment complex and identifies the stolen car. On getting into the building, he sees another kid and tells her to call the cops. At Iggy's place, Kenny explodes with rage upon learning that Maxwell had been there before with a friend. His furious outburst shakes Maxwell so badly that the pliers slip from his grasp and hit the floor. The sight of them sets Kenny off. He turns on Loretta, grabbing her by the throat and choking her. The scene triggers a buried memory in Maxwell's mind, his mother gasping for air, just like Loretta. Desperate, he shouts at his father, screaming that she can't breathe. The moment snaps something within Maxwell. Fueled by rage, he breaks free. As Kenny turns, Maxwell finally confronts him about the night his mother died. Kenny had lied, believing Maxwell was too young to remember, but the truth floods back. They struggle for a gun until Kevin bursts in, aiming a spray bottle. He warns that it's filled with corrosive acid and, when Kenny lunges, sprays it in his face. Kenny recoils but charges again. Maxwell doesn't hesitate. He blocks his father and bolts with Kevin. Outside, cops swarm the scene. Kenny tries to flee but is quickly arrested. About a week later, Maxwell's family joins Kevin's for Christmas. The mood is joyful, but Gwen notices Kevin looking weak. After dinner, Kevin hands Maxwell an empty book, telling him to keep it. Maxwell becomes emotional, bidding Kevin farewell before heading to bed. The following day, Maxwell wakes up only to realize that Kevin has passed away. The news breaks him, and he gets an emotional breakdown after meeting Gwen on the way to the hospital. Days passed and he refused to leave his room. He missed the funeral and the day when Gwen moved out. One day, he steps and runs into Loretta at a bus station. She tells him that nothing is a drag, and it changes his perception about life. Since that day, he changed. One time in class, the teacher asks a question, and he volunteers to answer. Blade and his other classmates are shocked, but even more shocked when he gets the answer right, proving he's no longer a dumbass. After school, he went home and picked up the book Kevin gave him. He started writing on the first page, though he had nothing reasonable to write. But during spring, he reached the last page of the book and got writer's block. He tried to figure out how to end the book and consulted the King Arthur book as a guide. Finally, he ends it and embraces that Kevin is gone. Man, we all saw that sad ending coming, but it still hurts. What did y'all think of this one?
Subscribe for more videos like this. Turn on notifications and leave a like. It really helps the channel.